My name is Madison Cole, and I'm 35 years old. 3 hours ago, I watched my boyfriend and his ex-girlfriend get arrested because I refused to lie for them. My hands are still faintly shaking as I think back over everything that led here, how normal it all looked from the outside. 4 years together. 2 years living in a modest little house we bought on the edge of town. Joint savings, shared furniture, stupid arguments about dishes in the sink and whose turn it was to take out the trash. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. He works in marketing, pulling in around 58 grand a year. He always called it 58 collars like it made the number feel bigger. I'm in IT support, around 71. Not glamorous, but stable, responsible. That's the word people like to use for me. Responsible Madison. Safe Madison. The one who pays bills on time, keeps track of passwords, remembers to schedule oil changes and dentist appointments. The one everyone assumes will handle it. 6 months ago, his ex-girlfriend moved back to our area. Vanessa. The name landed in my stomach like a stone the first time he said it. We dated in college, he told me, casually, like he was talking about a group project partner. We broke up on good terms. It wasn't some big drama. She worked for some pharmaceutical company, he said. Big job, big salary, big city. She reached out, he added, just wants to catch up as friends. I wasn't thrilled, but I also didn't want to be that girlfriend. Controlling, insecure, the one who bans her partner from talking to anyone they once kissed. So I smiled too brightly and said, "Sure, friends." They started with coffee, then lunch, then, "Oh, Vanessa's in town again. We might grab a drink after work." Sometimes he'd mention her in passing. She just started leading this huge project. She just bought a new Audi. She might get promoted to regional director soon. Can you imagine? Always about her accomplishments, her money, her bright future. I'd nod and hum, but inside something twisted. Each little praise felt like a pin pushing into the balloon of our life together. This afternoon we were supposed to go to his sister's place for dinner. Just family, he said. Casual. I'd made a brownie tray. He was in a good mood. Then, while we were getting ready, he called out from the kitchen, "Hey babe, can we pick up Vanessa on the way? Her car's in the shop." I froze for half a second. "You invited Vanessa to dinner at your sister's?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "She dropped by to see them earlier this week," he said. "They invited her too. It's not a big deal. We'll just swing by and grab her. It's literally on the way." "Not a big deal, right?" "Sure," I said, grabbing my keys. Whatever. I was driving. My Honda Accord. Nothing fancy, but reliable. After getting hit in a parking lot last year by some idiot who drove off, I'd installed a Dashcam, front and rear, audio and video. $200 for peace of mind and crystal clear footage of anyone who messed with me again. Best $200 I ever spent. I didn't know that yet. We picked up Vanessa at her apartment. She slid into the back seat, perfume sweet and sharp enough to cut glass. "This car is cute," she said, looking around. "So cozy." "Yeah," my boyfriend said, leaning back in his seat. "It's not an Audi, but Maddie's baby gets us from A to B." Vanessa laughed. "Hey, reliability matters." We drove for 10 minutes. The sky was dimming, that bluish gray just before night. Traffic was light. My boyfriend's phone rang, and he glanced at the screen. "It's my mom," he said. "Probably about dinner." He answered, and instantly I could hear his mom's voice shrilling through the speaker. Family drama. His sister's kids. Who was bringing what dish? All the usual. "Can you pull over?" he asked me after a minute, covering the mic with his hand. "You know how she gets. I need to focus if I don't want to accidentally promise we're hosting Christmas this year." We were on a quiet residential street. I sighed and eased the car to the curb. "Sure," I said. "I'll just sit here and exist." He grinned, kissed my cheek quickly, and slipped out of the car, pacing on the sidewalk as he kept talking. Vanessa shifted behind me. "Hey, Madison," she said after a moment. "Yeah? I'm going to move up front. I get motion sick in the back sometimes." "Okay," I said, "no problem." I unbuckled, ready to climb out so she could take the passenger seat. Instead, she opened my door. She smiled, all teeth, no warmth. "Actually," she said, "do you mind if I drive? You look tired. Long day at work?" Something in my chest tightened. "I'm fine," I said. "I'll drive. It's my car." "Oh, come on," she said. "Relax a little. I'm an excellent driver. Eric always said I was a better driver than him." My boyfriend, Eric, glanced over from the sidewalk when he heard his name, but stayed on the phone, gesturing for me to just handle it. I was about to say no again when Vanessa tilted her head. "Please, just this once. I kind of miss driving with my car in the shop and all." The way she said it made me feel like saying no would be rude, overreacting, jealous. Responsible Madison, always accommodating. I glanced at Eric. He caught my eye, mouthed, "Let her," and rolled his eyes like I was being dramatic. The warning in my gut screamed, but I swallowed it. Stupid. I climbed out, walked around, and slipped into the passenger seat. Vanessa adjusted the mirrors and seat with practiced ease, like she'd done it in his cars 100 times before. Eric got back in the back seat, still on the phone with his mom, now talking about whether his cousin was bringing her new boyfriend to dinner. "Just drive straight," I said quietly. "We're only a few blocks from the main road." "Relax," Vanessa repeated, slipping the car into gear. She drove faster than I would have, took turns a little harder, rolled through a yellow light I would have stopped at. My fingers curled into my jeans. "Hey," I said, "seriously, you don't need to race anyone." She laughed. "You sound like my driving instructor. We're fine." We came up to a four-way stop. There was a car already stopped to our right, an older sedan, beige, and a woman behind the wheel with both hands on it, the way cautious drivers hold on like they're bracing for impact. Vanessa slowed, just barely. Then she rolled through the stop sign, like the rules didn't apply to her. "Vanessa," I started. The other car had already started into the intersection. Vanessa floored it to try to beat them. We didn't. The impact slammed into the passenger side, my side, like a bomb going off. Airbags exploded, glass shattered, metal screamed. Time folded in half, everything happening in slow motion and all at once. My head snapped sideways, my arm crushed against the door. My ears rang, my vision turned white for a second. When it cleared, I was gasping, heart thundering. The other car had spun to a stop about 20 feet away. I could see the older woman holding her head, stunned. Eric's voice came from behind me, and for a second my heart lifted until I heard the word he used. "Oh my God, Vanessa, baby, are you okay? Are you okay?" Not Maddie, not Madison. Vanessa. It took me a second to realize he wasn't talking to me at all. The passenger door was jammed. I had to unbuckle and crawl over the center console, shoving the airbag aside, to get out on Vanessa's side. My arms screamed in protest. The air smelled like burned plastic and hot metal. I pulled my phone out with shaking hands and dialed 911. "Car accident," I told the operator, voice trembling. I gave the location, described the two vehicles, said I was pretty sure everyone was conscious. The older woman got out of her car, unsteady but moving. "Are you all right?" she asked, eyes wide. "What happened? I had the right of way." Before I could answer, Vanessa spoke. "It was my fault," she said quickly, voice high and panicked. "I didn't see you. I'm so sorry." At least she's owning it, I thought. Maybe I was wrong. Then she grabbed my arm and pulled me a few steps away from the other driver and Eric. "Madison," she hissed, "I need you to do me a huge favor." Every instinct in me bristled. "What?" I asked. "Tell the cops you were driving." I actually laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "What? No. You were driving. You blew a stop sign." Her eyes were wide, shining with unshed tears. "Listen, I had a DUI 2 years ago, okay? One more strike and I lose my license. I could lose my job, my whole career. My promotion is on the line. If this gets out, soon, then maybe you shouldn't have run a stop sign," I snapped. Eric walked over, still clutching his phone, his mom now on hold. "What's going on?" he asked. "She wants me to say I was driving," I said. His face did something I'd never seen before, a quick, sharp calculation. "Would that really be so bad?" he asked quietly. I stared at him. "Are you serious?" "You have a clean record," he said. "Nothing would happen to you. But Vanessa, she could lose everything. Her license, her job. She's about to get promoted. Just think about it." "Think about what?" I said. "Lying to the police? Taking the blame for an accident I didn't cause?" "Don't be selfish," he said. The word hit me harder than the car had. "Selfish, for not wanting a criminal record." "I'll pay for everything," Vanessa added, desperate. "Your car, her car, whatever. You won't pay a dime. Just say you were driving. Please." "No," I said. Eric grabbed my arm, pulling me even farther away from the others. "If you love me," he murmured, urgent, "you'll do this. We can handle a mark on your record. It won't ruin your life the way it'll ruin hers. You're stable. You're fine. She's fragile. Everything she's built could fall apart." The sirens were louder now, closing in. "She's important to me," he said. "We have history. I can't watch her life get ruined over one mistake. You can take this hit. Nothing will happen to you, but her, she has a future." "And what do I have?" I asked. He flinched. "You know what I mean." "No," I said quietly. "I don't think I do." The patrol car pulled up, lights flashing red and blue against the houses. An ambulance followed. 2 officers got out, assessing the scene. One of them approached us. Who was driving this vehicle? He asked. Vanessa stared at me. Eric stared at me. The expectation in their eyes was louder than the sirens. I took a slow breath. She was, I said, pointing at Vanessa, and I have dash-cam footage of the entire thing. The officer's eyebrows lifted slightly. You have dash-cam footage? He asked. Front and rear, I said. Audio too. It's all recorded. Her getting into the driver's seat, the stop sign, the impact, everything. For a second, the only sound was the wail of the approaching ambulance and the tick-tick-tick of my cooling engine. Vanessa's face went pale. Eric's grip tightened painfully on my arm. What are you doing? He hissed. Madison, think about this. I am, I said quietly. The officer gestured toward my car. Where's the camera housed? On the windshield, I said, moving toward it. My hands were still shaking slightly as I reached in, hit the power button, and popped the small SD card out of the side. I held it up between my fingers. Here. We'll need to view this, the officer said. Do you have a laptop, or can we use our equipment? Use whatever you need, I replied. As the ambulance crew checked on the older woman and briefly examined Vanessa and Eric, the officer carried the SD card back to the patrol car. His partner stayed with us, taking basic information, names, addresses, phone numbers. My neck hurts, Vanessa said, clutching at it. I think I'm injured. The EMTs looked her over. You're mobile. Pulse is fine. Breathing normal. We'll take you in if you want, just to be safe. She hesitated, checking the patrol car where the footage was being loaded. I'll wait, she muttered. Eric kept glancing between the cruiser and me like I'd just detonated a bomb. You've no idea what you're doing, he whispered. I'm telling the truth, I said. That's all I'm doing. You're going to ruin her life. She ruined her own life when she ran a stop sign on a suspended license. He flinched. You don't know it's suspended. I looked at him. Do you? He didn't answer. The officer in the car called his partner over. They both leaned toward the laptop screen, watching. I could see the flicker of dash cam footage reflected in the windshield. They played something back, then again. A moment later, the first officer stepped out and motioned to me, Eric, and Vanessa. Ms. Cole, Ms. Price, Mr. Walker, he said, we need to speak with you. We stood in a loose triangle on the side of the road. The older woman hovered nearby, with the EMT, listening. We've reviewed the dash cam footage, the officer said. It clearly shows Ms. Price, he nodded at Vanessa, exiting the rear passenger side, entering the driver's seat, and operating the vehicle at the time of the collision. It also records a conversation afterward in which you, sir, he turned to Eric, attempt to persuade Ms. Cole to claim she was driving. Vanessa let out a strangled sound. That's not. The officer held up a hand. Additionally, when we ran your license, Ms. Price, it came back suspended. You have an unresolved DUI from 2 years ago, and the court-ordered classes and fees were never completed. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I've been busy. I was going to... Further, he continued calmly, the vehicle you were driving is uninsured under your name. The policy attached to the plate expired 8 months ago. She swayed on her feet. I didn't know it expired, she whispered. My parents. Ma'am, the officer said, you're being placed under arrest for driving with a suspended license, driving without insurance, reckless driving, and causing an accident. They turned her around. The click of handcuffs sounded louder than the sirens. Vanessa started crying for real. Eric, do something, please. Eric stepped forward. This is insane. She made a mistake. And you, Mr. Walker, the officer interrupted, are being placed under arrest for conspiracy to file a false police report and attempting to obstruct justice. Eric froze. What? The dashcam audio records you urging Ms. Cole to lie to officers, he said. You attempted to manipulate the statement of the at-fault driver and the registered owner of the vehicle. Eric's eyes snapped to mine, wild. Madison, tell them I wasn't serious. Tell them we were just talking. You weren't going to do it. It was just... You repeated it for almost 10 minutes, the officer said flatly. That's not a joke. The handcuffs went on his wrists, too. He stared at me like I'd pushed him into traffic. You're really going to let them do this? After everything? After 4 years? I swallowed past the lump in my throat. I didn't put those cuffs on you, I said quietly. You did. The officer turned back to me. Ms. Cole, are you in need of medical attention? My arm hurts, I admitted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a deep, throbbing ache up my right side. But I don't think anything's broken. I'll go to urgent care after this. Ambulance can take a quick look now, he said. We'll also need you to come down to the station to make a formal statement and provide a copy of the dashcam footage. The SD card will be logged as evidence. Okay, I said, I'll come. The older woman from the other car stepped closer. "Miss," she said softly, "thank you for being honest." Her voice wobbled a little. Most people would have gone along with whatever story they cooked up. I managed a shaky smile. "I thought about it," I said, "and then I thought about what it would feel like to live with that." The officer took down my information and directed me to the back of the ambulance. The EMT checked my blood pressure, shone a light in my eyes, asked me to rate my pain from 1 to 10. I answered automatically, my mind replaying the scene of Eric calling Vanessa baby as the airbags deflated around me. At the station, everything blurred into a long, gray hallway of questions and signatures. "What time did you pick up Ms. Price? Who suggested the seat swap? Did Mr. Walker pressure you in any way? Did Ms. Price admit prior knowledge of her DUI?" I answered, over and over. I watched the Dashcam footage again, this time on a larger screen in a sterile interview room. I saw my own face in profile as Vanessa opened my door. I heard my own voice say, "I'll drive, it's my car," and her insistence, and Eric's quiet, exasperated, "Let her." I listened to myself say no when they begged me to lie. It felt like watching a stranger make a choice I didn't know I was capable of. The officer who'd stood with me at the scene leaned forward when the footage ended. "You did the right thing," he said. "If you'd gone along with their story, you could be facing charges too, all three of you." "I know," I said. But knowing didn't make the grief smaller. By the time they released me, it was after 9 p.m. My arm was bruised, my head pounding, and the caffeine from the vending machine coffee at the station was turning my stomach. I drove home alone. The house looked normal from the outside, porch light on, curtains drawn. His car parked in the driveway from earlier. The brownies I'd baked still sat covered on the counter inside, untouched. My phone had been buzzing throughout the evening. I hadn't looked at it. When I finally checked, there were missed calls from his mom, his sister, an unknown number I assumed was Vanessa's parents, and a string of texts. His mom, "Where is Eric? Why is his phone going to voicemail?" His sister, "Maddie, what happened? Mom said something about an accident?" His mom again, "Why is my son in jail? What did you tell the police?" I stared at the screen until the words blurred, then set the phone face down on the table. I didn't respond. I didn't know how to explain that the line between supportive girlfriend and accomplice had finally snapped tonight. I took a long, scalding shower, wincing every time the water hit my bruised arm. Afterward, I sat on the edge of our bed, the bed we'd picked out together at a discount furniture store 2 years ago, and stared at his empty side. Responsible Madison, safe Madison, Madison who could handle it. I lay down eventually, but sleep came in broken chunks. Each time I drifted off, I jerked awake to the memory of the impact of Vanessa's voice begging, of Eric whispering, "If you love me, you'll do this." Morning came anyway. Around noon, while I was answering work emails from my laptop in the small office room, I heard the front door open. I'd forgotten he still had a key. Footsteps in the hall. A familiar clatter of keys on the counter. The coffee machine whirring to life like it was any other day. "We need to talk," he called out. I stayed seated a second, staring at the cursor blinking on my screen. Then I stood, walked to the doorway, and leaned there, watching him. He was in the kitchen, back to me, casually spooning coffee grounds into the machine. The Orange County-issued wristband still clung to his wrist, stark against his skin. He turned and actually frowned, like I'd inconvenienced him somehow. "You had me arrested," he said. I stared at him. "No," I said softly. "You had yourself arrested. I just refused to lie." "You told them everything," he shot back. "You gave them the footage. You didn't even try to protect me." "I told the truth," I replied. "They asked who was driving. I said Vanessa was. They asked for evidence. I gave it to them." He stepped closer, eyes sharp. "Do you understand what you've done? I lost my job, Madison. Lost it. They called while I was still in holding. They said with the charges, they can't keep me. I've worked there for 7 years. It's all gone. And Vanessa..." He shook his head, jaw tight. "Her career is finished. You ruined both of us." "She was driving on a suspended license," I said, feeling my voice go flat. "Uninsured. She could have killed that woman. Or me." "It was one stupid mistake," he snapped. "No," I said. "It was several. Getting behind the wheel when she knew her license was suspended, running a stop sign, trying to talk me into covering it up. I was trying to help her," he said. "Someone I care about was about to lose everything." I panicked. "Someone you care about," I repeated. He hesitated, that tiny fatal pause. "Don't twist my words," he said finally. "I don't have to twist them," I said. "You told me she has a future. You didn't say that about us." He scrubbed a hand over his face. Okay, yes, I care about her. We have history. That doesn't mean I don't care about you. It means that when you had to pick, I said quietly, you chose her, and you tried to use me as a shield. He stared at me for a long moment. His shoulders dropped slightly. We can fix this, he said. Once this all blows over. This isn't a bad weekend, I interrupted. This is who you are when things go wrong. You look for someone else to take the hit. He opened his mouth, closed it. I'm going to stay with my parents for a few days, he said finally. We both need space. When this settles down, we'll figure things out. There's nothing to figure out, I said. He frowned. Don't be dramatic, Madison. I'm not being dramatic, I replied, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. I'm being practical. I'm calling a lawyer. He froze like I had slapped him. A lawyer? He repeated. For what? I looked him directly in the eyes. To separate our lives. The house, our accounts, everything. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. You're breaking up with me? He asked finally, voice cracking with a mixture of shock and indignation, like he couldn't imagine I'd ever make a move he didn't control. I exhaled slowly. I'm ending this, I said. Yes. He stepped closer, posture tense, jaw clenching. Over one mistake? Over a misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? I repeated. Eric, you begged me to lie to the police. You told me I was selfish if I didn't ruin my life to protect her. You called her important, and you called me safe. He pinched the bridge of his nose. I didn't mean it like that. How else would you mean it? I asked. His silence told me everything. Finally, he shook his head. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. Please, don't throw everything away. Eric, I said quietly, you threw it away when you asked me to sacrifice myself so she wouldn't face the consequences of her choices. His face hardened. I can't believe you, he said, voice turning cold. After everything I've given you, after all the years. Given me? My eyebrows lifted. What exactly have you given me that required me to lie to the police for your ex-girlfriend? He didn't have an answer to that either. After a moment, he grabbed his jacket and walked to the door. I'll come back for my stuff later, he said, voice clipped. And Madison, this is a huge mistake. He shut the door behind him. Silence filled the house. I didn't chase him. 2 hours later, I sat across from a lawyer in a small office that smelled faintly of old carpet and printer ink. Her name was Rebecca Stanton, mid-40s, sharp eyes, calm voice. She listened without interrupting as I explained what had happened. The accident, the pressure, the arrests, the years of cohabitation, the joint mortgage, the shared accounts. When I finished, she leaned back slightly and tapped her pen on a legal pad. First, she said, you did the right thing by telling the truth. If you'd lied, I'd be sitting across from a client facing criminal charges. My stomach nodded. I know. You're not married, she continued, which simplifies some things, but you do own property together, and you've built joint assets. That means we'll be going through a cohabitation dissolution, similar to a divorce when assets are mingled. What does that look like? It means dividing the equity in your home, splitting joint savings, dividing shared debts, and negotiating who keeps what. It also means making sure he can't come after you for financial support. I let out a bitter laugh. He already said he lost his job. That's unfortunate, she said dryly, but not your responsibility. She reviewed the mortgage documents I'd brought, the balance statements, the savings accounts, the receipts for combined purchases. Realistically, Rebecca said, you're looking at losing around $40,000 to $60,000 of your share, depending on valuation and buyout. My chest tightened. That much? You've lived together for years. You both contributed, and yes, if you want out, there's a financial cost. But staying could cost you far more. I swallowed hard. I want out, I said. She nodded. Then we moved forward. She drafted initial separation papers while I sat there, staring at the pen on her desk. A weight pressed on my ribs. Grief, anger, relief all tangled together. She handed me the folder. I'll serve him by tomorrow morning. I nodded. Thank you. When I got home, the porch light flickered on automatically as I walked up. The house, our house, felt emptier than it ever had before. I'd barely stepped inside when my phone started buzzing again. His mom, his sister, his cousin, even a number labeled unknown. I ignored the first few, but the notifications kept stacking until my phone practically vibrated off the table. Finally, I answered one, his mother's, without really meaning to. Madison, her voice shrieked through the receiver. What on earth did you do? Eric is devastated, humiliated. He said you're ending things? Over what? Some little accident? Little accident, I repeated quietly. He could have killed someone. He tried to make me lie to the police. He panicked, she said. He was stressed. You should have stood by him instead of running to the cops with your little video footage. My little video footage is why none of us are dead, she scoffed. You are a heartless woman. My son loved you, and you decided to betray him the moment things got tough. I always said you were too cold. I hung up. A moment later, a text buzzed. His sister. You're throwing years away because he made one mistake. Jesus, Maddie, you're cruel. Another text. His mother. What kind of woman destroys a man when he's vulnerable? Disgusting. Another. His cousin. Just so you know, everyone thinks you're the villain. I turned the phone off entirely. I stood in the quiet living room, our couch, our photos, our shared plants in the corner, and let the silence settle around me like a blanket. For years, I'd been the responsible one, the fixer, the steady partner. And now, because I refused to commit a crime for their golden girl Vanessa, I was a monster. The villain. The heartless one. It hit me with surprising clarity. They weren't angry because I did something wrong. They were angry because I didn't continue playing the role they expected. The one who absorbs the damage. The one who sacrifices. The one who can handle it. Not anymore. I took a deep breath, then another. Tomorrow I would meet with Rebecca again. Tomorrow the separation would move forward. Tonight I closed the blinds, made myself tea, and sat alone on the couch, feeling the ache of grief and relief pressing against each other in my chest. I had told the truth. I had chosen myself. For the first night in a long time, even with bruises blooming on my arm and exhaustion dragging at my bones, I felt something like peace. The next morning arrived heavy and gray, the kind of weather that made everything feel muted. Sound, light, even emotions. I moved slowly through the house, aware that every object around me belonged to a life that was already dissolving. At 10:14 a.m., my doorbell rang. 3 sharp chimes. I didn't need to look to know who it was. I opened the door to find a process server, a thin man in a navy windbreaker, holding a clipboard. Madison Cole? Yes. Documents for you. Sign here to acknowledge receipt. The folder he handed me was pristine, official, and unmistakable. Notice of intent to dissolve joint property and assets. Filed on my behalf. Served to Eric. It had begun. I tucked the packet under my arm and closed the door just as, almost poetically, my phone vibrated back to life on the table. I powered it on reluctantly. Within seconds, the notifications flooded in like a burst dam. Dozens of missed calls, new messages, voicemails. Then his name lit up the screen. Eric. I ignored it. The phone buzzed again. Eric. Ignored. The third time I answered. Not to talk, but because I knew he'd just keep calling if I didn't. What? I said quietly. You filed? His voice was tight, like he'd been yelling or crying. Maybe both. Are you serious? I told you I would. I thought you were just angry, he snapped. I thought you needed time. I didn't think you'd... Serve you papers? I finished. Yes, Eric, I meant it. There was a long silence on the other line. Then, you blindsided me. I closed my eyes. You pressured me to commit a felony. He sputtered. That's not fair. I panicked. Vanessa panicked. The whole situation was insane. You're blowing this out of proportion. Eric, I said, keeping my voice steady. You asked me to take the blame for an accident I didn't cause. You told me I was selfish if I didn't protect her instead of myself. He inhaled sharply. You're supposed to have your partner's back. And apparently, I said, you're supposed to have your ex-girlfriend's. Stop it, he snapped. You're twisting things. Vanessa was scared. I was scared. You're throwing away years together because of one moment of panic. 30 minutes, I corrected him. You pressured me for 30 minutes, repeatedly, calmly. He didn't reply. Finally, he said, I want to talk in person. No, you owe me that. I don't owe you anything. His breath hitched. Madison, please. That please might have broken me once, but not now. I'll let the lawyers handle the rest, I said. Don't do this, he whispered. I already did. I hung up. It took less than an hour for retaliation to come. His mother messaged first. How dare you file like this? After everything our family has done for you? His sister followed. He's in a horrible place. He lost his job. And this is how you respond? A group message I was in with several of his extended relatives lit up. You're overreacting. He was manipulated by Vanessa. He didn't mean it. Marriage is about forgiveness. We weren't even married, but okay. Then another message came in. Long, furious, clearly typed with shaking hands. His mother again. You're being vindictive. Cruel. You're destroying my son over something that could have been worked out. You must love being the victim. I stared at the screen, exhaled once, and blocked her. Blocked his sister. Blocked the group chat. One by one, I cut each thread that tried to drag me back, until my phone finally went still. By noon, I was at Rebecca's office again. She was reviewing appraisal values for the house, flipping through documents methodically. "We should prepare for pushback," she said. "Given his job loss and legal trouble, he'll likely try to argue that he needs a larger share of assets." I let out a humorless laugh. He already tried to guilt me into it. "Don't let him," Rebecca said. "His circumstances are a result of his actions, not yours." She turned a few pages, then looked at me closely. "How are you holding up?" The question felt strangely dangerous, like touching a bruise, but I answered honestly. "Tired," I said. "Relieved. Angry sometimes, but mostly tired." "That's normal," she said. "Leaving someone you've built a life with isn't easy, even when it's the right choice." I nodded. She tapped a signature line on a document. "Sign here. This authorizes me to freeze the joint savings accounts until division." I signed. Another line. "And here. This prevents him from taking on new debt in both of your names." I signed again. By the time the stack was finished, my hand ached, but something inside me felt lighter. "We'll schedule mediation in the next 2 weeks," Rebecca said. "In the meantime, gather a list of all shared belongings you want to keep. Anything sentimental or irreplaceable, move it out of the house sooner rather than later." I nodded. "I will." "And Madison?" I looked up. "You're doing exactly what someone strong and self-respecting would do." For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. When I got home, the house felt different. Not haunted exactly, just hollowed, like someone had scooped out the warmth and left only walls and echoes behind. I walked room to room, mentally noting what was his, what was mine, what was shared. The couch, shared. The TV, shared. The kitchen table, his mom's hand-me-down. The bookshelf, mine. The framed picture of us from a trip 2 years ago, his sister took it. I took the photo down and set it face down on the counter. As I headed upstairs, my phone buzzed again, from a number I didn't recognize. I debated ignoring it, but something told me to answer. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then, "Madison, it's Vanessa's mother." I nearly hung up right then. Her voice sounded strangled. "I'm sorry. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but Vanessa told us what happened, all of it. The DUI, the license, the accident, the lies. We didn't know any of it." I said nothing. "She's devastated," her mother continued. "She knows what she did. She knows she ruined everything." My throat tightened, not out of sympathy, but because this was the first time anyone connected to them had acknowledged reality. She asked me to tell you she's sorry," her mother whispered, "that she never meant to drag you into her mistakes." I exhaled, slow and steady. "I appreciate you telling me," I said quietly, "but I can't fix this for her." "I know," she said. "I just wanted you to hear it." There was nothing else to say. We hung up. I stood in the stairwell afterward, one hand on the railing, the air still around me. For the first time since the accident, the noise, the accusations, the guilt trips, the demands, faded just a little. Not enough to forget, but enough to feel the first small shift towards something like freedom. I went upstairs to pack the belongings I wasn't willing to lose. Photographs from my childhood, a jewelry box my grandmother left me, the laptop I'd bought with my own money, a few books I loved, and the Dashcam, my unlikely lifeline. As I placed it gently in a box, a strange truth settled over me. Sometimes the thing that saves your life isn't dramatic or romantic. Sometimes it's a $200 piece of plastic stuck to your windshield, quietly watching, quietly recording, quietly protecting you when the people you trust won't. I closed the lid on the box and carried it downstairs. Tonight, I'd start looking for apartments. Tomorrow, I'd begin packing the rest. And soon, very soon, I'd be gone. I spent the next few days moving through the house like a guest in a place that used to be mine. Every cupboard I opened reminded me of some shared moment. Every drawer I slid shut echoed with memories that were suddenly too sharp to hold. But numbness is its own kind of armor, and I wore it like a shield. On the 4th morning after filing the separation papers, my phone lit up with an incoming call from Eric's number. I let it ring out. He called again, and again. On the 5th call, I finally answered, not out of curiosity, but because I needed the calls to stop. "What?" I said, voice flat. He exhaled shakily. "Madison, can we please talk? Please. You're not even giving me a chance." "I gave you 4 years," I said. I didn't get 1 minute when it mattered. "That's not fair," he protested. "You're acting like everything between us was fake." "No," I said softly. "It wasn't fake. It just wasn't enough." There was silence for a long moment. Then, "Can I come over?" "No." "Madison." "No," I repeated. "If you have something to say, say it now." He hesitated. I could picture him pacing, running his hands through his hair the way he did when he was frustrated. I used to find that endearing. Now it looked like the gesture of a man who used charm instead of accountability. "I'm in therapy," he blurted out. "My counselor says I have codependency issues, that Vanessa was manipulating me, that I got caught up trying to fix her life again. It wasn't about choosing her over you. It was about—" "Let me guess," I interrupted. "Your emotions, your stress, your pressure." He stopped talking. Then, in a small voice, "I'm trying, Madison." "I don't doubt you're trying," I said. "But trying to fix yourself now doesn't repair what happened. You're not even giving me a chance to make it right." "You're right," I said. "I'm not." "And why not?" he demanded, voice breaking on the edges of desperation. I swallowed hard. Because this was the answer I'd been circling around for days. "Because trust doesn't grow back," I said quietly. "Not after what you did, not after who you chose." He let out a pained sound. "I didn't choose her." "You did," I whispered. "You chose her when you asked me to sacrifice myself for her. You chose her when you told me she had a future worth protecting. You chose her while I sat bleeding in the passenger seat and you asked if she was okay." His breath caught. I continued, softer but sharper than before. "And even if we tried to fix things, every time something went wrong in the future, I'd wonder if you were going to hand me over again, if you were going to use me as a shield again, if you were going to pick her, or someone like her, over me." He sniffed hard. "Madison, I love you." "I believe you think you do," I said. "But love isn't about who you say you care about. It's about who you protect when life is burning." He didn't answer. So I asked the question I'd been afraid to voice. "If we were in that situation again, and Vanessa begged you again, what would you do?" He didn't breathe, didn't speak, didn't deny it. And that silence was louder than any confession. "I can't do this anymore," I said finally. "I'm done." He inhaled sharply. "I don't accept that." "You don't have to," I replied. "It's still true." "Madison," he whispered, voice cracking like fractured glass. "You're breaking my heart." I closed my eyes. "You broke mine first." I hung up. The next week was a blur of logistics. Rebecca scheduled mediation. I packed 2 boxes a night. I reached out to a real estate agent. I toured apartments, small ones, modern ones with big windows and ones with bad lighting. That's how I found the place, a 2-bedroom on the 11th floor of a new building downtown. Light wood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a small balcony that overlooked the city lights like scattered diamonds. Not a house, not what I'd planned, but something was undeniable the moment I walked in. It felt like mine. "Do you want to apply?" the leasing agent asked. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how certain it sounded. "Right now." By the end of the week, it was official. I had a new home. On the morning I went to sign the lease, I stopped at the old house one last time to grab the last few things I refused to leave behind. A small ceramic bowl from my grandmother, my favorite throw blanket, a USB drive with years of family photos. When I stepped inside, I heard movement in the living room. My stomach clenched. Eric. He was kneeling by the coffee table, sorting through a pile of papers. When he saw me, he froze. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, hair unwashed, a man wearing the weight of consequences like a heavy coat. His gaze softened. "Hi." "Hi," I answered flatly. I just came to grab some boxes," he said. "Rebecca's office said you'd be out this afternoon." I nodded. He hesitated. Then, "Are you really moving today?" "Yes." Where are you going?" "A place downtown." He swallowed. "Alone?" "Obviously." He flinched, then cleared his throat. "I brought something," he said, reaching into a folder. He handed me a sheet of paper. A letter. Handwritten. The sight of it sent a strange ache through my chest. I hadn't expected that. "What's this?" I asked. "My apology," he said softly. "Or what I hope passes for one." I didn't open it. He rubbed his hands together nervously. "You don't have to read it now. Just, if there's anything left of what we had, even the smallest piece, I hope you'll read it someday." I nodded once, non-committal. He looked around the house, eyes glistening. "I thought we'd live here forever," he whispered. I didn't reply. "And I know you probably won't believe me," he continued, "but when I think about that night, the part that hurts the most isn't the accident, or losing my job, or the charges, or the fallout." His voice cracked. "It's how fast I lost you." My jaw tightened. "You didn't lose me fast, Eric. You lost me the moment you told me to lie." He opened his mouth, but no excuse came out. For a moment, we just stood there, 2 people surrounded by the ghosts of a life we had almost built. Then I said, "I need to go." He nodded slowly, stepping aside. As I walked past him with my boxes, he spoke one last time. "Be happy, Madison." It was the first thing he'd said to me since the accident that didn't feel like manipulation. I didn't turn around. That afternoon, I signed the lease for my new apartment. I moved boxes into the elevator, carried them down the hall, and set them onto clean, silent floors. The space was empty, and mine. As the sun set, I stood at the window overlooking the city, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel trapped inside a life falling apart. I felt free. Tired, bruised, but free. And I knew, deep in my marrow, that I had done the hardest part. I had walked away. I wish I could say the rest of the transition was clean, quiet, and civilized. But people rarely let go of their narratives without a fight, especially when those narratives paint you as the villain. The very next morning, my first morning waking up in the new apartment, my phone vibrated nonstop. I assumed it was spam or work notifications. It wasn't. It was a number I didn't recognize. I ignored it. Then the same number called again and again. On the fifth attempt, I answered, expecting either a telemarketer or another relative of Eric's ready to unload their opinion about my moral character. Instead, a thin, shaky voice said, so is this Madison?" "Yes," I said cautiously. There was a tremble on the other end of the line. This is Vanessa." My grip on the phone tightened. I wasn't sure what I expected to feel. Anger, pity, satisfaction. All I felt was a cold, still quiet inside my chest. I didn't reply. I let her speak. "I know I shouldn't be calling you," she said quickly. "I know I don't have the right. I needed to tell you something." Silence stretched between us, taut as a wire. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything, for the accident, for lying, for dragging Eric into it, for putting you in that position, for trying to make you responsible for my mistakes. Her voice cracked. "I was so desperate to not lose my career. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't being fair. I wasn't being a good person." Still, I didn't answer. She swallowed audibly. "I know you probably hate me." "I don't hate you," I said quietly. "Hating you would mean spending energy on you. I'm done doing that." She let out a shaky breath, half relief, half shame. "That dash cam," she murmured, "it saved your life and ruined mine." "That dash cam showed the truth," I corrected. "You ruined your own life." There was another long pause, then, "You deserve better than how either of us treated you." I blinked, surprised she admitted it. "I just wanted you to know I'm not blaming you anymore," she whispered. "I'm blaming myself." Her voice faltered, and before I could process any response, she hung up. I stared at my phone, the city morning spilling light over my bare apartment floor, and realized something. Her apology didn't change anything. It didn't fix anything. It didn't make the past less painful. But the fact that she said it at all, it felt like closure. A small piece of peace settling into place. Later that week, Rebecca called me. "Our mediation date is confirmed," she said. "Next Tuesday at 10 a.m., his lawyer will be present. Expect arguments about asset division." "I'm ready," I said. But the truth was, I was nervous. Not because of the negotiation itself. I'd already made peace with the financial loss. I was nervous because I didn't trust myself not to break when seeing Eric again. Not because I wanted him back, but because grief has a strange way of ambushing you even after you've escaped the fire. Mediation day. We sat in a conference room, me on one side with Rebecca, him across from me with his lawyer. I was struck by how different he looked. Thinner, paler, cracks under his eyes like fractures in porcelain. He didn't look like the man I once planned a future with. He looked like someone who had discovered the weight of consequence too late. His lawyer began. "Our client believes that due to recent financial setbacks and unemployment resulting from the accident, he should receive a larger portion of the shared assets to compensate." Rebecca didn't miss a beat. "His financial setbacks were caused by his own criminal charges," she said sharply. "Charges stemming from behaviors he chose and attempted to conceal. Ms. Cole bears no responsibility for the consequences of his misconduct." His lawyer pressed on. "He is willing to negotiate, but he cannot walk away with nothing." "I never said he would," I replied calmly before Rebecca could respond. "He'll get half of the house equity and half of the savings. That's fair." Eric looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in his eyes fractured. The rest of the session dragged into hours of discussions, splitting retirement accounts, assigning value to furniture, navigating debt. Then came the part I'd been dreading. His lawyer cleared her throat. "My client would like to present evidence that he was manipulated by Ms. Price, Vanessa, which mitigates his responsibility." Rebecca rolled her eyes. "Manipulation does not negate conspiracy." But his lawyer slid a stack of printed messages across the table. Eric didn't look at me. I didn't look at him. I looked at the pages. Flirty messages, late-night chats, conversations he never told me about, what-ifs, hypotheticals about their breakup, reminiscing. Her telling him she missed their spark. Him saying he missed parts of it too. Not quite an affair, but not innocent either. My stomach twisted, but my face stayed still. Rebecca flipped through the stack and scoffed. And you wanted to argue he wasn't responsible for his choices? His lawyer flushed. The intention here is to show emotional pressure. No, Rebecca cut in. The intention is to muddy the waters. She turned to me. Madison, do you want to pursue further claims based on these messages? I didn't look at the pages again. I looked at Eric. He was already looking at me. And for a heartbeat, there he was again. The man I used to love. The man who once held my hand and whispered promises into my hair. The man who built a life with me before he burned it down. No, I said finally. I don't want to pursue anything else. He exhaled shakily. Not relief, something closer to regret. The session ended with signatures, agreements, deadlines. And just like that, our life was officially dismantled. Outside the building, Eric stepped forward as I started walking to my car. Madison, he said softly, can I talk to you for a minute? I stopped. I know I don't have any right to ask you for anything, he continued, but I need you to know something. I waited. When I asked you to lie, it wasn't because I thought you mattered less. His voice trembled. It was because I thought you were strong enough to survive it. I stared at him, stunned into stillness. And Vanessa, he swallowed hard. She always breaks. I thought I was protecting everything I've ever had to fix. I felt something inside me untwine, something I'd been holding tightly without realizing it. It doesn't matter why, I said gently. It still hurt. He nodded, tears forming in his eyes. I know. There was a pause. Then he whispered, I hope one day someone sees you the way you deserve to be seen. That sentence lingered between us, soft and painful. I took a breath. I hope you learn to see yourself clearly. He let out a sad, broken laugh. Yeah, me too. We stood there for another moment. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. That night, in my new apartment, I unpacked the last box. I placed the ceramic bowl from my grandmother on the shelf, unfolded my throw blanket over the couch, set my favorite mug beside the sink, arranged my books by color on the bookshelf. When I finally sat down with a cup of hot tea, the city lights outside blinking like quiet promises, I realized something. This wasn't a temporary stop. This wasn't a bandage. This wasn't a retreat. This was a beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. A month passed. Then two. My life slowly reshaped itself into something steady again, like a bone that had been fractured, set, and healed, stronger along the break. Work became a stabilizing rhythm. Mornings were quiet. Evenings were calm. I bought a plant. Then another. Then two more after that, because apparently healing turns me into someone who likes greenery and sunlight and fresh starts. My apartment began to feel lived in. Warm. Mine. But the past wasn't completely done with me. Not yet. It was a Thursday morning when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it until I saw the area code. It was from a county detention center. A cold ripple slid down my spine. I answered. A recorded voice spoke first. You have a call from an inmate at the... Then a beep. And then a voice I hadn't heard in months, slightly worn, deeper, hollow. Madison, it's Eric. I felt my fingers tighten around the phone. Why are you calling me? I asked quietly. He exhaled shakily. Look, I know I shouldn't. I know I don't deserve a second of your time. I just needed to ask you something. What is it? His breath hitched, like he wasn't sure he'd get the words out. Can you drop the insurance claim? I blinked. What? My parents, his voice broke. They're drowning, Maddie. They're elderly, and the insurance company is going after them for everything. It's $8,000, and they don't have it. They're paying in installments, but it's killing them. I closed my eyes. Eric, I said slowly, I'm not the one pressing the claim. My insurance company is. I can't stop that even if I wanted to. You can talk to them, right? Tell them you don't want them to pursue it? No, I said firmly. That's not how it works. The company makes that decision, not me. He was quiet for a moment. So that's it? You really won't try? No, I said I won't. His voice twisted, hurt and angry. You're unbelievable. Says the man calling from jail, I replied softly. He let out a sharp, bitter laugh. You know what? Fine, whatever. I thought maybe... His voice suddenly cracked, raw and unfiltered. Maybe you'd care. I did care, I said, for years. And you used that against me. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then, barely audible. I'm sorry, Madison. I swallowed. I know, I said. And I did know. He meant it, in his own flawed, too-late way. But sorry wasn't enough to rebuild what he destroyed. We stayed on the line for another second, breathing into the space between us. "Goodbye, Eric," I said. He whispered, "Goodbye." The call disconnected. And just like that, the last thread tying me to that life snapped. Weeks passed after that call, and the season shifted. Leaves began to fall. The air turned crisp. People switched from iced coffees to hot ones without realizing. And somewhere in the middle of all that slow unfolding, something changed for me too. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly. I started smiling more, laughing more, feeling like the version of myself I'd lost long before the crash. Then, unexpectedly, I met someone. His name was Caleb Bryant, and I met him at a cybersecurity workshop my company sent me to. He was steady, grounded, smart without being smug, funny without trying too hard, and kind in a way that didn't demand anything from me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was bracing for impact when I talked to someone. We exchanged numbers. We went for coffee. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a slow, careful kind of connection, two people gently testing the edges of possibility. One evening, sitting across from him in a warm, dim-lit restaurant, he asked me, "So, are you over your ex?" I didn't flinch, didn't pause, didn't question. "Yes," I said simply, "I am." And I realized in that moment, it was true. My heart wasn't holding any space for Eric anymore. Not anger, not love, not what-ifs. Nothing. Just a dull, distant ache that belonged to a past I'd already buried. Caleb nodded, accepting my answer without probing for more. "I'm glad," he said with a small smile, "because I don't date people who are still stuck in old chapters." I smiled back, "Neither do I." Later that night, when I returned to my apartment, I stood by the window, overlooking the city. The lights shimmered. Cars flowed like little rivers of motion. People walked below, far away, but full of their own stories. I thought about everything that had happened. The accident, the betrayal, the truth, the separation, the rebuilding. Then I thought about the Dashcam, the small, unassuming device that had captured everything. The one thing that hadn't lied. People say things like, "Love saves you," or "Family protects you," or "You'll know who you can count on when life gets hard." But sometimes the thing that saves you isn't love, isn't family, isn't a person at all. Sometimes it's a moment of truth you refuse to bend. Sometimes it's a choice to stop being the one who always carries the weight. Sometimes it's a piece of technology attached to your windshield, quietly recording the moment your life splits into a before and an after. I touched the edge of the dash cam sitting on my bookshelf. $200. It cost $200 to save my future. And leaving Eric had cost me far more. But both prices were worth paying. All of it. Every bruise, every tear, every signature on every legal form. Every night spent in a strange new apartment learning how to be myself again. Because I wasn't just free, I was finally me. And that was enough. More than